Iya, Pak Triarko.
Iya, saya share screen dari tempat saya saja ya.
Oh iya, boleh Kak.
Saya operasikan sendiri ya. Baik,
Ya,
makasih.
baik ya. Bu Aisha juga akan share juga.
Architecture program, Universitas Indonesia aims to shape a new generation of architects who are able to design adequately to context. Students must be able to pursue the application of basic theory and architectural knowledge. We ensure that the program is supported with a strong curriculum. Our design studios, as the core of our program, are complemented with compulsory and elective classes. Students should learn the aspects of design from theory, technology, history, and design methods.
Through our programs, we enable the students to learn in different ways. We create different opportunities and different learning environments. Some of them are class-based, such as the studio where the students can do their work and discuss with their peers. Some of them are lab-based, so the students are exposed and trained to do digital or manual craftsmanship. And then we expect them to go directly to the society, so they can go to the field. This usually apply in studio where they engage with the nature, with different communities, which then expose them to even broader learning environment.
When I joined, I thought architecture is all about tangible aspects like structures, materials, constructions, and how in reality, the courses and the subjects are so different. Like we have courses that introduce us to see the intangible aspect of architecture. So it really makes me think that being an architecture student is really more than just learning how to design a building.
Our department is very keen to contribute in research and community engagements. Students from architecture and interior architecture courses are encouraged to apply their knowledge to the community. We also ensure the work is always done with positive dynamics, pitching new ideas, developing the work, and receive feedback whenever we can. We continuously pursue higher understanding of architectural elements through ever-developing research. Not only will this benefit the community that are directly affected by those programs, but it will also help students in their work life after they graduate.
The learning experience was intense, but in a fun way. We refer our knowledge of architecture not only from books or journal, we also learn through movies, art performance, sports. We also do field visit, which is like a construction site visit, public event visit, and many more, which bring us different perspective on how we see architecture.
I think the Universitas Indonesia graduates, they have the skills needed for the profession. I do believe they can fill all the possibilities in this design or construction world. Only few of them can make it to become a real good designer, but that doesn't mean that they cannot develop themselves into other spectrum of profession in construction work.
The students are actively engaged with various activities that is organized by the student unions with the full support from the faculty or the department. One of the example is excursion. The idea of the excursion is the students can learn about architecture from the various places in Indonesia and process of documenting vernacular architecture. So I believe that we can learn a lot from this process, from this excursion, that we live with the people, we talk to them, we observe them, how they live, how they do the activities and their engagement with the space. And at times, we as the students really try to live as the local world.
From this program, I expect to gain many knowledge of architecture, both theoretically and technically. And from that basic solid foundation, I hope I can continue my study into a higher degree, and participate in creating Indonesia a better place someday in the future.
All of the programs in Department of Architecture, Universitas Indonesia will provide graduates with the skills needed. According to the GS and THE World University Ranking, our program is one of the best in Southeast Asia and ranked #1 in Indonesia. Together, we believe that our staff, along with all facilities, are ready to help students to achieve wonders. The Department of Architecture, Faculty of Engineering, Universitas Indonesia is ready to face the world of tomorrow.
Morning, especially our guests from University of Florida at Gainesville and the United States. Good afternoon, especially our guests from Cardiff University, Birmingham University, and the United Kingdom. Good early morning, our guests from Auckland University and New Zealand and other parts of the world. And of course, good evening for our guests from Universitas Indonesia, Bappeda DKI Jakarta, Jakarta Research Council, SDGs Hub UI, and other institutions in Indonesia that I cannot mention one by one, and all guests and participants. Please let me greet all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who have been pleased and took the time to attend this webinar. Actually, this webinar is held as part of the 6th International Joint Workshop and Seminar as a collaboration between Universitas Indonesia, City of Florida, Cardiff University, and Auckland University. In this year, we have also in partnership with other institutions such as Bappeda DKI Jakarta, Jakarta Research Council, and SDGs Hub UI, which support us through lectures that we held under this webinar and open to public as well. The COVID-19 pandemic has changed human life in various fields, including architecture and urban lives. Activities in the public domain are limited and even prohibited. Domestic life become dominant and replace urban life, as everything is oriented to domestic life and control from home, including work, study, school, shopping, relaxation, sports, social interactions, economic transactions, and others. And we have in the last 12 months taken to Skype, Zoom, Teams, and such like web-based conferencing systems. And progress in making this experience as painless as possible has been rapid. On the other hand, the world outside the home has also undergone change, which was previously very dynamic, polluting, crowded sometimes, as if it was slowing down, healing, calm, and empty. There are and will be sheer potential impacts of COVID-19 on our cities. The comparative governance perspective is so helpful in understanding why nations have adopted different approaches to dealing with the pandemic. And one of the stable starting point for a comparative analysis of the variable effects of COVID-19 on citizens and cities is the domestication of work and life. This is an issue that is close to all our lives and undoubtedly plays a part in shaping our urban areas. Thus, its considerations in strategic view to respond and address the problem occurred in the process. Therefore, in order to bring the discussion further, we have invited several speakers from academicians, researchers, bureaucrats that related to the themes. On last Tuesday, we have invited Professor Dr. Pratiwi Sudarmono as keynote speaker, who talked about how cities are going to build after COVID-19 from a health perspective. And tonight, we invite other speakers from different backgrounds. First speakers, we have Dr. Nasruddin Joko Surjono, Head of Jakarta Planning Agency. Selamat malam, Pak Joko. Thank you very much for coming. And the second, we have Dr. Insinyur Aisha Dokmauly Tobing, M.Sc, M.CP, General Secretary of Jakarta Research Council. Selamat malam, Bu Aisha. Thank you for coming.
Selamat malam, Prof.
Yeah. And the third speaker, we have Dr. Triarko Nurlambang, MA, from SDGs Hub UI. Selamat malam, Pak Triarko. Thank you very much for coming. And for today's webinar, we also have commentator, which is Professor Christopher Silver, PhD, MA, MURP, from University of Florida. Good morning, Prof. Silver. Thank you very much for coming.
Ya, selamat pagi dari sini.
Selamat pagi too. So, before we start the presentations, these are the procedures that for the all participants. So, participants must maintain order and courtesy in communications during the synchronous meeting. Please mute your speaker during the webinar. If you have questions for the presentations, you can write your questions on the chat box, and then participants may raise questions to the speaker via chat message during the meeting, or you can use raise hand icon. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now we come to the first sessions. This is the presentation from Dr. Nasruddin Joko Surjono, ST, SIP, M.Sc, MBA. Let me read his curriculum background. Dr. Joko graduated, have a graduate degree in political science, international relations from Pajajaran University. And he also have graduate degree in engineering, urban and regional planning from Bandung Institute of Technology. He got 2 master degree. First, Master of Science in Economics from University of Indonesia in 2004, MBA in International Business from Aju University, South Korea in 2006. And his PhD in Economics is got from University of Indonesia in 2013. He is acting Deputy Director for Custom and Excise Policy Fiscal Policy Agency from Ministry of Finance in 2007, Deputy Director for Regional and Bilateral Policy Fiscal Policy Agency, Ministry of Finance in 2014, Deputy Director of Custom and Excise Policy Fiscal Policy Agency, Ministry of Finance 2015 until 2019, and his current position is Head of Regional Planning and Development Board of Jakarta Province. And this is some of his awards. He got second prize online competitions on harmonized system and classification, WCO, Satya Lancana Karya Sata 10 years, and Satya Lancana Karya Sata 20 years. His title of presentation tonight, Development Strategies in Post-Pandemic Jakarta. Please, Pak Nasruddin.
Thank you, Professor. Dear Moderator, Professor Kemas, PhD, and keynote speaker, Dr. Aisha Dokmauly Tobing, Dr. Triarko Nurlambang, and commentator, Professor Christopher Silver, PhD, our colleagues from University of Florida, Cardiff University, Birmingham University, University of Auckland, and participants that present today from around the world. And a very good evening from Jakarta, Indonesia. It is an honor for me to participate in the 2021 International Joint Workshop and Seminar. And this is, I will present the development concept and strategies that Jakarta is currently developed to address the post-pandemic challenges. Before I present about the shift of vision and priorities of post-pandemic Jakarta, I would like to describe the changes that we face during pandemic and how this translates into the term of Jakarta regeneration. How Jakarta to build back better. And furthermore, I will describe the upgraded vision and priorities in the city to ensure a resilient future and the approaches that we are currently undertaking related to the shift in vision and priority. I would like also to inform you that Jakarta now, the government of Jakarta with the parliament, local parliament, we are trying to revise our medium-term development planning 2017 until 2022. And in order the current condition that we face pandemic COVID-19, and I would also describe that we have a 5 mission that is making Jakarta to be safe, healthy, intelligent culture city by strengthening family value and providing space of creativity through the leadership that involves and mobilize and humanize. Next slide, please. We believe that behind every problems, there are opportunity. That's a significant change that can be observed globally is the decline in the mobility pattern. Nowadays, many residents can do their activity, work, study, or play from the comfort of their homes. In Jakarta, 1 million soft workers for around 4,000 companies have already implemented work from home scheme, as well as more than 1.5 million students and tens of thousands of lecturers implement distance learning. And the change is also happening in interaction pattern, where the activity that was previously done face-to-face shifts to the virtual platform. During the implementation of large-scale social restriction year-on-year digitally, banking transaction in Indonesia sharply increased by 41.53%. This is an opportunity for Jakarta. And in terms of activity pattern, now many residents can work out in a weekday morning before starting their work. As previously mentioned, the civil mobility pattern, time was used to commute can now be used for other activities. Since space converts and now become dissolved, and we can work from home while spending time with their family, and also work also become flexible as working hours are not always 9 to 5 hours. And we find the fact that now in Jakarta, 1,000% increase in the number of cyclists. So based on the ITDP data in 2020, in June 2020. So during activity restriction period, the traffic also reduced by 50%. This is based on TomTom traffic index. So there are many opportunities. There's shift in activity pattern, and this is freedom of time and space. This is a new experience for us, that residents can cycle or walk in the morning before they work from home or anywhere. And we have also the new concept of, we call it the Jakarta regeneration. So the Jakarta regeneration deliberate the change that come as there are plans to move. Actually, regeneration must address the current problems in Jakarta. Nowadays, we have COVID-19, and also during maybe last week, we faced a flood. Before pandemic, the congestion has also happened in Jakarta. We have challenge in clean water and economic inequality, while also being resilient to future shock. For example, a health crisis or natural disasters. So when Jakarta loses as we face potential and challenge that have to be identified and addressed. That's why we are trying to shift or upgrade our vision and the priority of post-pandemic Jakarta. So this is the term of Jakarta regeneration. The regeneration process is in achieving one of Jakarta vision that is sustainable and globally competitive. And the term itself, the concept itself, must be able to overcome the market recurring problems. And this is the plan to move the center of national government. And maybe next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah, okay. Nowadays, local government of Jakarta city, we are trying to upgrade of Jakarta vision. The ideas of the city of Jakarta, we have 3 ideas for city of Jakarta. First is related with collaboration and city 4.0. And second is regeneration of the capital. And the third is smart city. So the development of concepts that have been implemented before the pandemic in Jakarta. The introduction of city 4.0 concept, which is involved collaboration between government as collaborator and citizen as co-creator. And this happened nowadays. We are hand in hand with citizen. For example, in order to overcome, anticipate the flood, or in order to hand in hand to overcome COVID-19 in Jakarta. And the second ideas is how to regenerate of the capital, as described in previous section. And the third, we realized that we need a smart city to facilitate and also for public service through the smart city program. So this concept were challenged by various problems. For example, we have a health crisis. Because of health crisis, we have impact on economic crisis, and also has impact on social problem. So to solve these issues and size opportunity, we upgrade our vision to be pandemic proof city, crisis resilient city, digitally advanced city, and sustainability and livable city. We realize that the future of Jakarta will not only concern on economic growth, but we also concern on health and environment issues. We believe that health and environment issues become maybe the future of issues of Jakarta. So then from this concept, we are trying to save life, and so every life matters, and save life. Everyone deserves decent life, and we upgrade of Jakarta vision by improving approved city pandemic, and we are trying to crisis resilient city, digitally advanced city, and sustainably livable city. As you know, during pandemic COVID-19, we face a fiscal problem before we have a local budget 88 trillion rupiah, and now we face contraction in 2020 become 63 trillion rupiah. So with this condition, we have to adjust the expenditure side, and we are trying to solve the problem of health problem and environment problems. So next slide, please. We are trying to upgrade our vision, and there are 4 topics which are regarding spaces. We are trying to improve our digital and neighbor-oriented development. Before, we don't have like Zoom. We seldom to use like internet for webinar or something like that. But nowadays, it's become, Jakarta become familiar with this condition. And this is related with the space that we have to implement smart city and neighbor-oriented development, where urban planning will concentrate on building mixed use and self-sufficient neighborhoods. So, and also regarding welfare and social, Jakarta will develop inclusive and welfare services that are based on personal needs with measurable impact. And regarding economy and business, Jakarta wants to promote digitally adaptive workforce and new industry with added value. And lastly, regarding government, we will transform into dynamic organization with agile performance and management. Next, I will elaborate further on these 4 topics. Okay, next. TOD, or transit-oriented development area, are examples of relatively new urban development concept in Jakarta. When the first mass rapid transportation system was developed in mid-2010s, around mid-2010s. Oh yeah, as you know that the MRT is new for Jakarta. Before, we don't have underground transportation, but since 2010, we developed underground transportation, MRT. Then we will develop area surrounding each station. We're designed to have more compact and mixed-use development. So become intermodal chains, and we create like affordable residence, green open space, bike path, and improve pedestrian and people with disability access. So the pilot project of TOD, transit-oriented development, can be seen in this picture. You can see Dukuh Atas, Istora Senayan, Blok M, Fatmawati, and Lebak Bulus Station. So from south to north, from Lebak Bulus to Dukuh Atas, Bundaran HI, and then goes to north. So we continue this MRT project from Bundaran HI until Ancol. So the north of Jakarta is And next, please. In order to, furthermore, Jakarta wants to develop itself as a livable and attractive city. One of the programs to realize this commitment is the integration of the multimodal transportation, which include the expanding of MRT and LRT system. So we integrate microbus to the existing of Transjakarta bus rapid transportation route. We also integrate physical and non-physical transportation infrastructure and revitalize and develop a new non-motorized vehicle infrastructure, such as bike path, bike sharing, and pedestrian ways. So in total, Jakarta has reduced more than 80,000 tons of CO2 emission. So our efforts with the citizen has been recognized as the city was awarded the 2021 Sustainable Transport Award and become the first city in Southeast Asia to receive this award from ITDP. So, next. As you know, the success, maybe I would like to inform you also, the success of Sustainable Transportation Program can also be viewed in the reduction of congestion level in the city of Jakarta. In 2017, Jakarta is number 4 congestion cities. So we are the top 10 most congested cities based on the top TomTom traffic index. As of last year, in 2020, Jakarta became number 31. So we are not 10 most congested cities, but we are live and become number 31. Yeah, this is yeah, we have experienced this because of the condition of COVID. As of last year, yeah, we are able to improve our congestion level and reach rank number 31. So there is still a long way to go, but the city is confident that we can keep improving our mass transportation system. Next. And in addition, yeah, we also informed you before that in the future, we have committed to implement policy that more environmentally friendly. So in 2020, last year, in collaborating with the state-owned company or PLN, electricity state-owned company, we built building a solar power plant Kepulauan Seribu or Sebira Islands. So before in Sebira, diesel power plant, we use diesel, but now we move to building a solar power plant. And also we develop with a collaboration with C40 cities climate leadership. We develop and committing to reduce public transportation emission via electric-based buses. And this year, maybe around 100 electric buses will be implemented in Jakarta. And also, we develop adequate public space for its citizens. There are 1,851 parks in 2,223 hectare area available in Jakarta. So this is that we have done, and also we are trying to develop in this year 2021. The next please. As I also mentioned before, related with how to improve our smart city with regard to internet access. The city is committed, the Jakarta city is committed to provide more internet access for the public with the provision. We provide we call it Jack Jakarta Wi-Fi. So we call it Jack Wi-Fi. So we're trying to make cities with free Wi-Fi that can be accessed in school. So this is how to promote education during this COVID-19. So the city free Wi-Fi can be accessed in schools, government building, and public spaces. So also this Wi-Fi support public's need for internet as distance learning and work from home became the new norm during the pandemic. And then also we developed, next slide please, we developed also one-stop integrated family data collection, or we call it CHARIK, Jakarta application. So now we move on to the topic of welfare and social. So a breakthrough of program that we incorporate digitalization and social security with the CHARIK Jakarta application as the one-stop family welfare service. So this application is supported by more than 70,000 female volunteers that collect family data, and then they submit them to the social agency. This data then processed and to assist the distribution of social security and in order to subsidize food. The data is very important during this pandemic COVID-19, because based on this data, we can make a policy and how to distribute the subsidized food and other to improve social condition in Jakarta. The application is a channel for public education, city program information, and environmental information. By using the CHARIK, we call it CHARIK, data application that respond not only one-stop integrated family data, but also, next slide, also respond to COVID-19. The data, by utilizing the CHARIK application, we can obtain the detailed data that can support how to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. This data contain a database of vulnerable elderly and non-elderly, and also the data provide pregnant and breastfeeding women, which are also classified as high-risk population, and also children whose parents are infected or infected by COVID-19, and family who have tested positive or recovered from the virus. And other application from city of Jakarta. Next slide. Jakarta collaborate with the public and other stakeholders in responding to the pandemics. There are a few channels which can interact with the citizen or private sector, such as we have corona.jakarta.go.id. We have JAGI application. And also the important things during last year, we developed, we call it Jakarta Development Collaboration Network. We realized that not only development of Jakarta depend on local budget. Local budget only 2% of local or regional GDP of Jakarta, so only 2%. So we need collaboration with the citizens or private sectors through this information of technology in response to COVID-19. For example, we collaborate with startup companies to optimize and increase efficiency of testing, tracking, treatment, and monitoring. Next, please. So this is the approach toward resilient post-pandemic Jakarta. We have 4 visions, and we translate into medium-term plan, spatial master plan, and regulation. Both medium, we are revised. Before we have medium-term plan until 2022, and this year we revised this medium-term plan because of COVID-19. And also during this year, we also revised the spatial master plan. Spatial master plan of Jakarta, we are trying to revise, and now we are in the process of revising this local regulation. And of course, we need also executing instrument. So to ensure this aforementioned vision become reality, we translate into the medium-term plan with period of 5 years, spatial master plan that cover 20 years, and regulation that support justice for citizens and attract the private sector to join this program. From this plan and regulation, we are executing an instrument that can be implemented. The plan are formulated strategic program. We call it KSD, Kegiatan Strategis Daerah. We translate from the medium-term plan become more a one-year action plan. And we also emphasize in collaboration with other stakeholders, whether they are other government or public or private sector, to support the program. And we prepare budget efficiently, and the program can be collaborated. It will have maximized alternative funding. Next slide. As previously mentioned, the development of collaboration can be done in many schemes. Government to government, so it means government to other government, government to public, government to private or business, or public to public. This is our idea to realize, to try to translate the City 4.0 concept, where everybody can come together and citizen as co-creator. We also realize that cities have the capability of providing something for everybody only because and only when they are created by everybody, as Jan Jacob said. I think that is enough for our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Joko. This is very interesting presentations, and I think there are 3 points that Pak Joko have highlighted for these presentations. First, about change in life and the term of Jakarta regenerations. There is the shifting in mobility patterns, shifting in community interactions patterns, shifting in activity pattern with freedom of time, space, and also challenged by plan to move the center of national government and COVID-19 pandemics. Also, the second one is shift of vision and priority of pandemic Jakarta included collaboration development for TOD program, commitment to develop a livable and attractive city by transportations integration program, and Charik. I think it's quite interesting, and also utilizations of information technology in response to COVID-19. And the third, approach towards resilient post-pandemic Jakarta by ensuring vision that becomes action, government-citizen partnership, government as collaborator, and citizen as co-creators. Okay, I think many of you will have very interesting questions, but we slightly changed the scenario because of the limitation of time. So the question and answer session will be done after all the speakers do the presentations. Yeah. Okay. So the second presenters, we would like to invite Dr. Insinyur Aisha Dokmauly Tobing, M.CP, and she is a city planner that holds a bachelor degree in city planning from Bandung Institute of Technology, IJWS, and she had 2 master's degree in city planning and in international development and appropriate technology from University of Pennsylvania, USA, UPenn, and a doctorate degree in environment from the University of Indonesia. She is currently serving as Secretary General of the Jakarta Research Council, or DRD, and as a Deputy Secretary General of CityNet. She is also involved in several international organizations, including the Institute for Transportations and Development Policy, ITDP, and the C40 Climate Leadership Group. Bu Aisha has been working in the public sector since 1977 at Jakarta Capital City Administrations. And during long services for the administrations, she had held several key positions, including the Director of the International Cooperation Bureau, the Director of Information Technology and Communications, Management Office, the Head of Environmental Management, and the Head of the Government Affairs Divisions. And tonight, she will deliver her presentation titled Empowering Cities to Take Climate Action and Circular Economy for Sustainable Development. So we invite Dr. Aisha Tobing to deliver her presentations. Please.
Okay. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening for all. Thank you for Professor Kemas, Professor Silver, Dr. Joko, Dr. Triarko, and other participants. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm honored to share with you what according to our topic today. I share my presentation. Is okay?
Yes, that's clear.
Yes, I choose my topic is empowering cities to take climate action and circular economy for sustainable development. So my presentation is more than, if you heard before, Pak Joko already in detail and in practical. My presentation is more conceptual and about and more in general. So I start with background and empowering city because we are concerned now about cities and illustration about crisis and city challenge and climate circular economy action. And that's my presentation. So what's the background of my presentation is there are 3 questions we have to answer. How can planners and policymakers improve the access to the real-time and important information that helps cities survive a crisis? This is we know that's about how about the importance of digital transformation and so on. And the second thing, what can urban planners and policymakers do to reduce the impact of crisis, especially for on disadvantaged communities? So this is, planners here can be architect and others also, and policymakers in government sector. And the third thing, how should public service be designed to cope with surges in demand? I think Pak Joko already make a explanation about how Jakarta to design to cope with surges in demand according to the crisis. That's our background of our presentation and tonight discussion. So coming to, I saw that illustration of crisis. I like this this cartoon illustration. This by M.Sc. Maybe everybody has see that in so many in our what's you see that's the our wave of crisis now. COVID-19 is now too many. We heard before from our meeting last Monday, that's from our health side, how to deal with the crisis of COVID-19 from the health side and then from epidemic. But there is the other crisis is from recession. This is from economic side. There's a big wave will be coming. So that's why a post-COVID, there will be big wave recession. Maybe I think this is more crisis than COVID-19. And the third, coming to my, there's the good things also. That's by M.Sc. also in March 2020. They make it it's the earlier pandemic. He make it after recession. There is be the bigger crisis is climate change itself. That's why my topic here is more than climate action. So pandemic is can be such kind of more than pandemic. It's climate change, the post pandemic also. So that's our illustration. Then why cities? Because we know the city is more the conflicting than the others, because 80% of the planet population, the prediction it will be in cities, and 80% of global GDP in cities. And the consumption and energy is around 70 to 76. And 80% of CO2 emission coming from city. So climate disaster could put 1.3 billion people at risk by 2050, according to the 80% of the planet population in the city. And more than 70% of city already feel the negative impact of the pandemic and climate change in the city. And potential vulnerability of cities to pandemic in infection, disease, and contagious disease is more than the other place. This is the Y city, and you can see that in the illustration. This is I made this about all this on the city, from traffic jam, flooding, poverty, and so on. So I put in one. Then before that's pandemic and contagious is more than. Before we ignore the problem is to worry about that, but now is the more priority. Pandemic and contagious is more the challenge in the city, because the density of the population, so the contagious is more. That's the challenges of the city. And then according to that, the problem and the illustration, we have a strategy of global agenda.
Bu Aisha, can you make a full screen for the presentation?
Oh, it's full screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
This is you have a strategy of global agenda to deal with all the challenges from SDGs and climate change and new urban agenda, national framework, conversation of biodiversity, and other global agenda. This we deal with from international commitment. So the city will contribute to this, all the commitment and all the challenges in the commitment. And then this is about such kind of illustration also. This is global carbon emission. During the pandemic, you can see that global emissions are reduced due to the pandemic situation. But many scientists that prediction after the pandemic, the global carbon emission will be increased quickly after a pandemic. So we still deal with the climate change, even after pandemic. And this is a climate change strategy. We have it, I think, I don't learn it, read it about mitigation and adaptation. How mitigation is how to reduce carbon, and adaptation how to adapt the impact of climate change. That this is mitigation strategy. The first is production efficiency and efficient use of energy. And the second, emission reduction, both from the moving source, transportation from the unmoving source. And the third, absorption, such kind for greenery. And coming to from the illustration, now we come that to the four challenges, the crisis, the biggest wave. If you don't care about the first pandemic, and then the recession and climate change, that's a danger. And finally, because the climate change will be our natural resources, if we don't have the keep the policy on keep it to action, and there will be biodiversity collapse. This is a more crisis and more danger after the pandemic. So for this, we have to see that all the crises after pandemic, we more concerned about circular economic this is a start from reviews. I'm not expert about economic, but I think this is we have that daily life from refuse, reform, reduce. We have circular. This is economic that update to now, because before the economic is linear, now it's circular. You have to make such kind of minimum of waste the economic. That's a circular. I think this is a good. This is come from our daily life. And what is the circular principle? Circular economic and economic concept is fundamental principle is to keep resources with and coming from the environment, economic circuits, therefore extending their life cycle and avoiding their return in the form of waste, increasing of effectiveness and efficiency. And the third one, focus of in the various states, such kind refuse, reflex, reduce, reuse, and recycles. And the last thing is promote a reduction the effect of human activity on the environment without jeopardizing the quality of life. So this is a principle of circular economy. So this is good. We pay attention to this based on the crisis after pandemic. So we have to concern about that because good things to to follow the principle economy. This is a circular economic process and maintenance, such kind acquisition of raw material, design and project, production and reformation, transport and distribution, consumption, use, reuse and repair, and collection, recycling. This is the process of that I showed the picture before. So we have to keep it concerning. That's the environment of ecology consideration. So this is, for example, if we do that such circular economy for our development, so we heard about energy efficient facilities, we use resources, optimization of logistics, and then remote communication technology, use of recycled product, turn to market, and rental and leasing rather than having buy it. Renewable energy, we heard this is important things, increase the percent of recyclability in product. Yes, so we have to make it a more percent of recyclability, more efficient equipment with lower maintenance. That's all. Use and recycle materials, all of things that the circular economy, we have to put it in our design project, every detail project. So this is a circular economy consider of environment. This is for green building. I think everybody, we heard it before. Consideration also concerning the climate change and the low carbon. But more, if we compare to the green building with circular economy, it's more. I think is more concerned about the crisis. This is an example during the pandemic, the consumption of electricity consumption. This is not enough. This is not doing anything. So the same, even though like the government using electricity, even though is the working in the office is smaller, but the using the electricity is still there. It's not because there is not yet the about the what's we call that the regulation or the standard of the how to using the electricity to make efficient. Later on, I think after change the habit, change about the behavior, there will be seen how to make efficient in everything life, in everything activity, adjust everything for design the building, design the how to using energy, everything. So that's the post-pandemic planning. And this is, for example, circular economy in the Kampung Iklim in Jakarta, in Sunter, how they make it such kind recycle of waste, plastic waste reuse for planting, preparation, something like that. And this is bank sampah. This is the example of circular economy, the important thing that's working with environment also. Bank sampah, I think Jakarta is already a lot of. So this is a good example circular economy, bank sampah. And this is also about medicine, planting in the yard. All this parts are part of the circular economy in the small scale. This is also urban farming, waste compost production. In daily life, we already have a circular economy, but have to encourage now more support, more to socialize and to community doing the circular economy. I saw now, as I heard now, many households already doing that, but the government should support that to do more about circular economy. So as a conclusion for my presentation, that's post-pandemic is an opportunity for and policymakers to take transformation action towards creating cities that are more just, resilient, and sustainable. City has the potential to be major catalyst of change in the implementation of recent international agreements, Paris Agreement, SDGs, 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda, the new urban agenda, and the central framework for disaster risk reduction. Application of the circular economy will be able to accelerate climate action and SDGs. I think later on, Triarko will be Article 12, responsible and consumption and production from SDGs will be supporting by circular economy action. Circular economy is inefficient and effective to obtain the solution of all the crises, pandemic, recession, climate change, and biodiversity collapse that were illustration I made. An excellent opportunity for preparing such instruments, standards, tools, design, and models for change behavior or new normal era. This is good for, for exercise, all of it to make such kind, because every city has the different approach, different strategy to do that, the strategy about after pandemic. And city needs more innovative and creative to obtain the solutions such the speed and scale at which digital transformation that can be delivered. So everything can be digitized. We heard that before Jakarta, but so many what innovation about digital transformation in their smart city, and as well as other cities also now they concern about digital transformation. I think that's my conclusion. I hope we can more detail it and then make exercise to every stage how about the crisis will be solved to look for the solution. Thank you very much all.
Thank you very much, Ibu Dr. Aisha Tobing. Very interesting questions, and Aisha starts with questions. How can planners and policymakers improve the access to the real-time and important information that helps cities survive the crisis? What can urban planners and policymakers do to reduce the impact of a crisis, especially for disadvantaged communities? And how should public services be designed to cope with surge in demand? I think, again, that's some of you have interested questions, and we also collected some questions, but I think we can wait until the third speakers do the presentations. So let me invite the third speaker for these sessions. Dr. Triarko Nurlambang, MA. He's graduated from University of Indonesia from Geography, and checked the graduate diploma from Australian National University, Master of Arts from Flinders University of Australia, and obtained PhD degree in public policy from Universitas Indonesia. Dr. Triarko was a director on Research Center for Developmental Institutions in UI 2014 until 2018, and also coordinator for director for SDGs Hub UI 2019 until now, and also director for Center for Applied Geography Research UI 2007-2013, and Vice Dean for Cooperation Affairs, Faculty of Mathematics and Natural Science, UI 1999 to 2003. We have several publications. Nurlambang, Triarko, Geographic and Institutions Matters in Achieving Sustainable Development in Indonesia, a book chapter of Dilemmas of Regional and Local Development, Jersey Banks, editor, Routledge Publishers. And the second one, titled Public Health and Extreme Weather in Indonesia, a book chapter of public health and extreme weather with Rais Attar as editor, Elsevier Publishers. And tonight, Dr. Triarko will give a presentation titled Integrating SDGs into DKI Jakarta 5 Years Plan through Strategic Environmental Assessment. We invite Dr. Triarko Nurlambang to deliver his presentation, please. Pak Triarko masih mute. Can you make it a full screen, please?
Okay. Can you see my presentations now?
Yes, we can see your presentations.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And thank you for the invitations for these presentations. I would like to share my experience in joining or participating the SEA public consultations conducted by Bappeda DKI Jakarta. It was last year, in mid last year, I think. Well, first of all, I would like to give you pictures of DKI Jakarta, that when we talk about regional development or urban development, we cannot only see or scrutinize the city as well. We have to look at this the area, such as the catchment area of Jakarta, for instance. So when we are talking about the development or the regional development, then we have to look at more bigger area than Jakarta itself. Well, this is a general knowledge of sustainable development. When I think that everybody here is already know what is the definitions of sustainable development. Well, it is easy to answer what is the sustainable development, but in reality, it is very hard to implement it. It is very hard because it should deal with other sectors. It should deal with other stakeholders. It should deal with many other part of the areas. So it's getting complicated when we are trying to implement the concept of sustainable development. It is not only a silo, but it also includes almost all things that we are going to develop. Yes, it is right that we are not only dealing with the environment, but at the same time, when we are dealing with the environment, we have to consider the economic and the social as well. So if we are going to have a better level of sustainability, then we have to consider all those three pillars together. at once. The economics will interact with the social, and it also will interact with the environment. So it cannot be assessed only one by one, but it have to assess everything's at once. So that's the problems actually that we are facing if we are going to achieve the sustainable development goals, or we're going to achieve the sustainable development. Well, in Indonesia, sustainable development has been the mainstreaming for Indonesia development plan since 2009. So it is 8 years before the SDGs have been ratified by the government in 2017 with the presidential decree number 59. Before the SDGs have been launched by the government, the Indonesian government itself has already have the sustainable development, and it is mandatory for any development plan, either for midterm plan or the long-term plan, midterm plan, and also for the yearly plan. And it also implemented in the spatial planning. So if we go through the law number 32, 2009, it already stated in the article number 15 to 18 or 18, yeah, which stated that sustainable development should be implied by all development plan. Unfortunately, this statement has not been recognized or is not been understood by most of the decision makers, unfortunately. So there goes their decision making process by ignoring the sustainable development in such a way. But I think this is really a challenge for the initial development plan and also the implementations. Well, after 2017, the Indonesian government launched the SDGs, which initiated by the United Nations. Then it becomes, I would say that it becomes well, I would say it becomes confusing by all the decision makers, especially in the local government, and also for those stakeholders who try to implement the development plan, whether they are going to use the law number 32, 2009, or they have to fulfill the SDGs, the President Decree number 59, 2017. Then these issues has become considered by the government, especially the local governments, because they have to oblige the laws and also the regulations at once when they try to have the local midterm plan. Then this has been initiated by the Ministry of Home Affairs, they were issued the ministry regulations number 7 2018, which tried to merge it together, the sustainable development based on the law number 32 and the SDGs based on the presidential decree number 59. So then all the local government has the guideline how to implement the sustainable development. Well, there's a quite different approach. I might say that the sustainable development under the law number 32 2009 is focusing on the bottom-up approach, which means that they try to identify first. Firstly, they have to identify the problems, and they try to identify the problems in terms of the sustainability, while the SDGs, they try to cascading the target and indicators uh, which has been decided by the United Nations and then adapted by the government of Indonesia. Although we may have a numbers of ways to evaluate the targets and indicators based on the United Nations guideline, but we may have a chance to decide it our own targets and indicators. But in overall, we are still have to fulfill the targets that have been committed by the global countries. So the SDGs itself, in my opinion, it's more as a top-down approach rather than bottom-up approach, as the law number 32 2009. Well, in some cases, they are confusing in one way, but in other ways also make the local government cannot have a certain regulation to implement the sustainable development. When the situation's getting more increased or getting more sensitive to the development plan, then we have to look at the regulations. Which one we have to use it, or which one we have to revert. But then again, because of the local government all local government development is undersupervised by the Ministry of Home Affairs. That Home Affairs make the Ministry Decree number 7 2018 in order to solve the problems, and then they have the regulations and how to do it, but that still numbers of problems of doing it in operation, how to do the process, because not only because of the data, but also the mechanisms is also been the problems as well. Well, those problems actually nowadays nowadays or currently have been discussed by the Ministry for Home Affairs and also for the Ministry for Spatial Planning and also by the Ministry for Environment and Forestry. But under the Ministry of Home Affairs regulations, they have a guideline how to implement the SDGs and also the sustainable development itself. As you can see from the slide, that first thing first, then we are in the SEA instruments, and then afterward, then we have to analyze the gap of the let's say as the current policies of the local development and the reality as the baseline of the environment or the social conditions and the social economic conditions. Then those gaps been scrutinized carefully by the expert that they been involved in the process. Then using the deliberations approach, they may have the solutions and they reconstruct the problems, and also they may develop the recommendations and may come up with policies, which then have to be decided by the local government leaders and with the local authority for the legislations. Well, as you know that those sustainable development is dynamic because of the institutions that being as the players and also being as the supporting. And this is the way that I try to evaluate the sustainable development as the SDGs. And if you go through the mechanisms of the national plan and then into the local plan, the 20 years plan, and then the 5 years plan from the national, provincial, district, and then municipality. Those two approaches are implemented. And based on the Jakarta case, or as Pa Joko has mentioned that in 2020 they were revising the 5 years plan or the midterm plan of Jakarta because of the COVID and also by the development itself. And you can see this, that the development goals was applied on the revisions of the development plan. And as we know that Jakarta itself have their own characters, so not all of the targets and indicators of the SDGs which have been delivered by the United Nations can be applied in Jakarta. So then they will they have defined what targets are the best for Jakarta. So they are 219 indicators and targets that they've been assessed by the Bappeda, the local authority for planning, and they invite stakeholders to have their opinions. Well, the result is, I would like to show you the results, that the 46% or 115 indicators achieved in 2019. This is before pandemic. The data was used is 2019, and 46% were achieved, and 23% were improved, and 18% were need. I cannot see it. And 13% there's no data. Well, in overall, the indicator shows that from the goals, from the 17 goals under the SDGs concept, mostly were not yet been achieved totally. Some are still less than the others. All the data that they scrutinize it. 98% of the Jakarta area mainly experience as exceeded the carrying capacity and environmental capacity. And the climate change shows that they are increased in the GHG emissions profile. And in that year, in 2020, they have proposed the pandemic as one of the data that being considered. The COVID-19, it shows that 20.8% are positive case of COVID-19. It means that still on the high rate of the positive. Well, then after those baseline analysis, and then they try to have the gaps of the decisions on the spatial planning and also the sectoral planning, then they have to revise the plan, the 5 years plan, then they come up with these solutions. This is in general. I think it is in line what Joko has mentioned before. Okay, this is the these are the goals that mentioned as being as priority for DKI Jakarta. Goals number 1, 2, 4, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 13, and 17 are the priorities to be considered in the revised versions of the midterm plan. And this is the details. In every goals in details, you can read it. Okay. Well, in summary, I think the SDGs and SEA should be merged together, and it should be done as one process in order to have the national or even the local development plan. So I would like to show that the national and provincial SDGs based on the presidential regulations number 59 2017 on SDGs Indonesia, it is more on the top-down approach, but then we have to understand that it is not easy to make it in the level of provincial and the kabupaten level. So that's one of the problems, one of the big problems that that's faced by the members of many local governments in Indonesia to implement the SD and SDGs in Indonesia. While the government, the local government, especially the local government, has been experienced in doing the SEA. Yeah, in terms of time, it is longer than the SDGs. So they have experience from themselves, and also from their colleagues on the other areas, on the other local governments to implement the sustainable development applications. Well, this is, as I mentioned before, that the approach itself for sustainable development, or having sustainability as one of the main achievement for development goals, in theory can be achieved by collaborating the government, the private sectors, and also the community, and included the environment. So the nested model is getting more and more realistic rather than the 3 pillars model. Well, this is my closing remarks. There are 2 concepts of sustainable development implemented with the existing regulations must be combined and adjust as soon as possible. Now we are working on that. All the governments and the stakeholders who are concerned on sustainable development are really working together to have the better method or the better ways in implementing the sustainable development. And it is believed that planning at the provincial level may prove to be level may prove to be a point of intersections, as it is both a representative of the central government and it is also directly linked to planning at the district and municipal level. Well, I think I will stop at that point. I think I will offer to Prof. Kemas again. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Dr. Triarko. Again, this is very interesting and important presentations in relation to sustainable environmental assessment and the contradictory emerge from the regulations and how we merge the 2 concepts of the SDGs to be applicable even from the national, provincial level, which is you mentioned, but this is more top-down approach, and while in district and lower level is bottom-up level. So the combinations, these 2 must be done, but I think it's needs a strategy and scenario for this. Okay, thank you very much. We have 3 presenters. All have 2 very important presentations today, and because of the times, and I would like to let Professor Christopher Silver to make a comment for this 3 presentation, and then after that there are questions from audience. Yeah. Please, Professor Silver.
Pak Kemas, thank you. Thank you very, very much. These were 3 not only excellent presentations, but more importantly, I think they connect together a lot of the pieces of the both the post-COVID planning for post-COVID city, but also obviously sort of the larger issues of sustainable development that cities around the world are being faced with. I also am really glad that these sessions are recorded because for many of the students, obviously probably less so for the Indonesian students who are familiar with many of these issues, but the students from Florida, from Birmingham, from Cardiff, and from Auckland, I think will benefit as they work through the various themes that they're engaged with, whether it's on architecture and memory and preservation, as Pak Kimas's group is, on healthy neighborhoods, on EcoCity, and then the group that I'm working with Professor Frank on mobility. And certainly the presentations that we've had so far have really talked about the challenges, but also the opportunities of the post-COVID city. And I'll sort of work through the three quickly, but I'm trying to make connections between the three presentations because they are, in fact, very interconnected and very important. But I think it's critically important to begin by recognizing the theme of Joko's presentation, which is that problems generate opportunities. And certainly in the case of Jakarta, the challenges of addressing the impact of the pandemic have generated some very creative ways of, in a sense, taking advantage of how we've had to deal with it to create opportunities in the post-COVID city. You know, I think it's very important and certainly appropriate that some of the really important initiatives that were underway before the pandemic, such as modernization of the transportation system, the focus on transit-oriented development to try to increase walkability. Already, Jakarta was expanding its sidewalks so for walkability. That again, this was before the pandemic started. You know, having lived in Jakarta, I truly appreciated the ability to walk on down Jalan Tamrin in a much more comfortable way than I used to do back in 1989-90, when oftentimes motorcycles were on the sidewalks competing with me walking down the street. The car-free Sundays that have become a really important tradition. Well, these now are becoming part of life in Jakarta, and the data that Joko presented on the expansion of the number of bicyclists, the expansion of green areas in the city. These are all, they were underway, but they have even more priority now than because of the pandemic situation. Also, as we discovered in our previous international joint workshops and seminars, the move towards a digital economy was already well underway before COVID, but what has happened now is that it's gone beyond just the sort of the social interaction of the digital economy, but rather is really sort of fundamental to the way people now have to work. Again, it only represents, it's a key segment of the local economy, as the data pointed out, about 1 million people or 1 million workers and their companies having them work from home. And then you add in the students from the universities that are on distance learning and from schools. It's about maybe 20-25% of the population. What's important, I think, also is their focus on trying to expand the access to digital information to a broader segment of the population. And certainly, the explanation of how using digital technology to help people get access to better services through the Family Services Program, I think, is really very, very important. Dr. Aisha Tobing's presentation fills in, I think, what I think was a gap, not a gap that was was intentional, but rather, you can only put so much into a presentation at one time. But what Dr. Aisha Tobing brings into the mix, which is, I think, critically important, even though she dealt with it, as she said, in a more theoretical way, is the role of the environment within within Jakarta and within the Jakarta region. And obviously that was one of the topics that Pak Joko included, the greening and addressing environmental issues. But I think what Dr. Aisha Tobing did was to give us a bit more focus on the importance, and I would say the equal importance of the sort of the natural resources and the environment with the other pieces, with the economy and with the transportation. And again, these are many of the issues that Jakarta has been dealing with for decades. And they existed long before the pandemic struck and affected things, and they will continue after we get control of the pandemic. I think one of the real challenges for Jakarta is the fact that the capital is going to move to East Kalimantan, and that's for all the reasons stated by the government and others. Yeah, it's an interesting idea, and maybe it was important to do for putting the nation's capital perhaps in a more central geographic location within the country, and to the benefits that brings. But it doesn't solve the problems that Jakarta's had to deal with for decades in terms of access to clean water, sanitation, the problems of its rivers. And so I think it was important for Dr. Tobing to point out how important it is to address those issues. I think I hit a key, unfortunately. Let me see if I can get myself back here again. All right. I don't know where I went, but anyway, you can probably still hear me. I just can't see you anymore, but I'll work that out in a second. She introduces I think an extremely important concept, this notion of a circular economy. And I think what it does is bring into focus the fact that it is very possible to have a green economy as long as we recognize that the things that we produce need to be reused again. In other words, that rather than sending our debris out to a landfill in Tangerang or Bekasi, that in fact we reuse everything that we make, and there's a lot of ways of addressing that. What's interesting is that the circular economy has been most effectively used in European cities, and it actually, the green economy, while it can be done at the national level, it really does focus on the local level, and it's a critical way to address a lot of environmental challenges and the results of that we experience. It also offers a way to actually generate the kind of employment that I think we're going to need to do, because I remember that one of the big waves that she shows is the economic impact in the post-COVID society. Perhaps the economic challenges can be addressed simply putting more resources and more focus on addressing the natural environment. So it's a very important concept, and it's one that I think you can see effectively when you look at projects versus plans. In other words, it really is something that needs to be done on projects and a focus on projects that come out of the planning process, which of course brings up the question, where should the focus be? Should the focus be through national policy or through local policy, top down versus bottom up? And Dr. Triarko does a fabulous job, and maybe for those who aren't as familiar with processes in Indonesia, it might seem a little complicated, but under decentralization, local governments and citizens have a much greater stake and a much greater role in the governance process. But at the same time in Indonesia, the central government still plays a critical role, and certainly it's been the national government that has advanced and supported the Sustainable Development Goals that have come out of the United Nations. But at the same time, the assessment process, or the sustainable environmental assessment, has really come from the bottom up. And what I think Dr. Triarko is demonstrating is that this sort of connection between national and local is both an opportunity, but also a continuing challenge. You know, how do you actually implement? How do you actually make those goals become actions? And again, he shows very clearly that Jakarta has done a really good job of trying to assess those areas that it has focused on, and has been quite successful in achieving some of its targets. But there's still confusion. There's still sort of a limit to how much progress can be made, as long as there is this sort of not a divide, but a lack of clarity on how to implement, rather than just plan, but how to implement to achieve sustainable development. If I go back and talk about water and flooding and sanitation, and and Jakarta has 13 rivers and its tributaries flowing through it. Dr. Triarko also made a critically important point at the beginning of his presentation, which is that these challenges, the Sustainable Development Goals and the challenges underneath them, are regional and national, of course. But in other words, Jakarta doesn't have, because it's its own province, its own entity, it doesn't have control over what happens upstream in the Ciliwung River. It doesn't have authority over the rivers that feed into the city, that contribute to the challenges of water quality in the city. So there really is important role for higher level governance. And I think one of the things that comes out of actually the research that I've been doing on water issues in Jakarta is the need for some sort of intermediate level of governance to address water, to address pollution. Again, we in the United States, we have organizations known as authorities that are responsible for one particular activity, but it crosses over jurisdictional lines. And there needs to be some sort of regional management, because I think as long as individual local governments have to address these issues on their own, when in fact they are regional in scope, it'll be very difficult to be able to be successful in addressing those issues. So again, going back to his opening comment about this being a regional, these being regional challenges, I would underscore that and say that's very important. And the issues of governance over the implementation of Sustainable Development Goals is in fact a very critical issue. But these were three fabulous presentations. I'm glad they're recorded, because I want to go back and look very closely and at the tremendous information, the slides that were there, so that I can absorb all that was there. I thank the three presenters for very edifying and very, very focused presentations. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Silver. Very insightful comments, and I think it's also give feedback for all the presentations and for the students. And for the final, I would like to ask and invite the three speakers to give statement and response what has been Professor Silver comments, and also especially for Pak Nasruddin, there is also one question for you from Alex Klein. He asked what I would like to ask about security of the data that would be collected from the ITC applications or spoken about. How will the government secure the sensitive information that it collects? Thank you. Okay, please, Pak Joko Nasruddin.
Thank you, Prof. Kemas. Related with the Alex Klein question, actually, the network technology to support the systems in smart city in Jakarta has been implemented in Jakarta is aimed at making people's life easier. However, this does not mean that the innovation is not risky. The cyber attack can threaten data security and have the potential for misuse of the data by responsible parties. Therefore, network security needs to be implemented, including by Jakarta Smart City. One way to maintain data security and smart city network is to use firewall. The network security system is used to monitor and control outgoing and incoming network access traffic based on predefined security policy. A firewall is a barrier between a secure and trusted internal network and an outside network that is assumed to be unsafe and untrusted. So apart from protecting the system from cyber attack, data access policy are also important. This policy regulates and limits who access network or data. This is done to avoid unwanted access to important network data. There is a classification of information. One is the information available for public access, and the other is information for public. So we classify two information. And I also received a question from Mr. Abimanyu Takdir Alam to ask about the condition in Jakarta, that Jakarta is not only in the land, but we have sea. Yeah. So when we plan, more 60% of Jakarta is related with the 1,000 island. Yeah, 1,000 islands. So when our development, the long-term development of 1,000 island will be aligned with the priority of central government to make the Jakarta Maritime Area one of the national tourism strategic areas. I mean, we promote for tourism strategic area for the 1,000 island. And our development topic in 2020 is quality development. So the quality development is determined not only by the rate of growth, but quality is determined whether the development is distributed or not. So actually, we have inequality in Jakarta when the development is evenly distributed, called quality development. So when the development is not evenly distributed, so the development will not have a quality. The basic need of people in 1,000 island must be top priority in 2021. Some of the basic needs include available of clean water, waste water management, access to education and health, including provision of mobile puskesmas and inter-island community mobility. So that is a problem in 1,000 islands. And we have 6 issue strategy in Jakarta related with transportation and how to overcome the flood and clean water, air sanitation, and health, food, and social. We have like inequality, the problem because of COVID-19 right now. Well, that is challenge 6 strategic issues in Jakarta. And yeah, we collaborate with the central government to overcome this issue. Last week we talked with the Bappeda, and next week we talk with the Menko Marinvest. We talk about how to solve the problem in Jakarta, and we are hand in hand trying to overcome, because we have a dream that we are trying to develop infrastructure in Jakarta for long term. We already make a plan for 10 years from now. That's, I think, my comment. And thank you for Mr. Silver comments. I think it's a good comment and positive comment. And we are trying to note that this is a positive comment, and I will focus on maybe your input about Jakarta. Thank you very much. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you very much, Pak Joko Nasruddin, for the response. And the next is Ibu Aisha. Okay, Bu.
Yes, thank you, Professor Silver, for your input and then for your comment. I think his comment is good for me. And then I think one of the actually it look like, yeah, that is from Europe, but since the pandemic and last year, circular economy is popular in Indonesia, of course. And then many of our climate change experts concerned about circular economy to try to look for the model for every city, what kind of model of circular economy, because every city is different. So we like to look for the tools and model for every city, which are like the city with tourism, coastal city. It's different of circular economy, what kind of the function and the characteristics of the city. So now we are concerned about climate or climate change expert to look for the how to make a circular economy as a tool to achieve the target. Even though it's more than national policy, but I think in the small scale level and Jakarta, we can action. So the contribution of the city is more important to support the such kind of, for example, to reduce the carbon. Such Jakarta, we have promised by our governor already declared by 2050, we will have zero carbon neutral, and then by 2030 will be 30% carbon will be business as usual. I think that's we concerned about how circular economy, and you said it's like green economic also. That's how economic and environmental can be going parallel. It's not like before, it's not contradictory, but now since the pandemic, many community and also the many, I think so many Zooming now, also talking about circular economy. I think so many theory, many opinions. So we try to look for which one is the best for the city, at certain for the activity, for the community. We try to socialize the circular economy. That's, I think, my opinion. So thank you for your comment. And I have one question also from Pak Abimanyu here in the chat. I think she talking about the how she believes about the crisis will be coming in the next 50 years, and also, but he concerned about coastal city, what the strategy. I think so we do the more now more concerned about coastal city. I think national level also make we thought it daerah pesisir is more, I think, like in Jakarta is the priority our strategy to more concern, because degradation of the environment usually is more in the coastal city and then in the coast. So we do for the my climate change expert, we do, there is a strategy, is blue and green strategy. It's adaptation strategy. That's a that is a good strategy, blue and green strategy. And then we, so that's to conserve fasting about, I think that's the strategy of adaptation more in the coastal area. I think that's thing. Maybe next we can discuss about the coastal area is our priority to preserve the area. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Aisha Tobing, for giving a response and also questions, answer the question from the audience. And the last one, I would like to invite Pak Triarko for giving a response and statement.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I would like to respond Professor Silver. I think I would like to say that I have the same idea actually as you have mentioned before, that governance will be one of the issues, one of the main issues in urban areas such as Jakarta, because it is not able to manage the urban itself, because they are really connecting to the other area, because Jakarta is one part of the watershed or the catchment area. I remember when I was finishing my dissertations, I write down that Jakarta should have a government which not only the administrative area as we see at the moment, but they should have a bigger part as the catchment. But then when I have finished my dissertations, then I come to the local governments. I went to the Jakarta, I went to Tangerang, I went to Depok, I went to Bekasi to have the ideas of the new governments based on the catchment area. The non-Jakarta's governments are really don't like the idea. They really against the idea. So it will not be happen. They mention like that. So again, I think you are right that if we are going to manage the water, and then we may have a chance to manage the flooding, we have to manage the catchment area as well. So I think the problems of Jakarta, which is there are two big problems of Jakarta, that is flood and traffic. Those are really lines in planning terms. It is lines, the flow of water and also the flow of traffic. That those are really lines, and that can be solved by having the area which covered those lines, the 13 sungai or the 13 rivers, and also the transportation network. I think that would be one of the solutions. I think might be best solutions. The transportation already have so-called the Jakarta Bogor Tangerang Bekasi transportation system. They already have that, and they already have the planning. So they really come up with a new, I would say, a new public management. Then it also implies nowadays, but the water, it still doesn't really have the solutions. So I don't know when it will become a solutions then, if we don't have a new governance, local governments, or the new governments of what I call it as the a new, it's not Jakarta but Jabodetabek area. I think that's the answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Pak Triarko. I think all the presenters have make a response and comments that, and I would like to ask all the audience, please stay for a while because we will have a photo sessions after it. And I would like to, for the end part of these presentations, maybe I would like to say quotations from Pak Joko presentation from Jan Jacobs. Yeah, that's first. Cities have the capability of providing something for everybody, only because and only when they are created by everybody. And the next quotation from Michael Batty: the coronavirus crisis, what will be the post-pandemic city look like? So there are many features of this world that remind us of the lockdown, and the story is really all about how the machine that sustains such a world is stopping. One cannot help thinking about our own internet in this context, and how in the present crisis it continues to operate. To an extent, we have avoided thinking very hard, however, about the sustainability of our physical networks and supply chains, particularly those providing basic needs, which have become increasingly global too. And thank you very much to all speakers, Pak Dr. Joko Nasruddin, Ibu Dr. Aisha Tobing, Bapak Dr. Triarko Nurlambang, and also our commentator, Professor Christopher Silver, for all insightful and wonderful talking tonight, and very useful. We have many new insights from the talks tonight. And as an expressions of gratitude to the all presenters, yeah. Next, it is the giving of certificate of appreciation for the speakers. First, to Dr. Nasruddin Joko Surjono, the head of Bappeda Provinsi DKI Jakarta. Can the committee show it? And thank you, Pak Nasruddin Joko Surjono, for imparting your valuable insight and inspirations to all academics during this time of need, as one of the keynote speaker in the first webinar of virtual IJWS 2021 program. Thank you, Pak Nasruddin. And the second certificate we would like to give to Ibu Aisha Tobing. Please.
Thank you.
The organizer. To certificate of appreciation gratefully presented to Dr. Insinyur Aisha Tobing for imparting her valuable insight and inspiration to all academics during this time of need, as one of the keynote speakers in the first webinar of virtual IJWS 2021 program. Thank you, Bu Aisha.
Thank you.
And for the third speaker, we would like to give certificate of appreciation to Dr. Triarko Nurlambang.
Thank you, Prof. Kemas.
And certificate of appreciation gratefully presented to Dr. Triarko Nurlambang MA for imparting his valuable insight and inspirations to all academics during this time of need, as one of the keynote speakers in the first webinar of virtual IJWS 2021 program. Thank you, Pak Triarko.
Thank you, Prof. Kemas.
And also for the commentator today, for the committee.
Thank you very much.
Kiki.
Yes, thank you, Professor Kemas.
Yes, for Professor Christopher Silver, because Professor Christopher Silver will still with us until the end of the international joint workshop. So the certificate of appreciation will be given by the end of the international joint workshop together with other certificates. Thank you very much for Professor Christopher Silver for giving very insightful commentator for tonight, and your contribution is very highly appreciated. And for those,
thank you. I learned more than they learned from me, so it was a great.
Yeah. Thank you, Prof. Silver. And before we left, please the organizer take a screenshot, and all the participants please turn on your video, please.
Okay, so thank you, Prof. Kemas. So please kindly turn on your web camera in order to make us to be able to take the photo. So we're gonna take the photo 3 times because we have 3 pages of Zoom. Yeah. Okay. This is for the first page. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, let's see. All right, so this is for the second one. 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Wait a minute. And for the third one, 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much. And one more thing, there is an announcement from the organizers about the new programs of the Faculty of Engineering. Please, the organizer. Yeah, so Faculty of Engineering Universitas Indonesia open a new study programs, Magister Multidisiplin, Perencanaan Wilayah Kota, and there will be a new intake for this semester with the registrations this month, and CIMAC batch 1 February and March, and CIMAX batch 2 in June and July. Thank you very much to all of the participants, to the speakers, to the audience, and commentators, our friends from University of Florida, University of Birmingham, Cardiff University, University of Auckland, friends and guests from Bappeda, Jakarta Research Council, and also SDGs Hub UI and other university. Thank you very much for attending this today webinar, and there will be the next webinar on the let me check, on the 5th of March that will be held separately by Cardiff University and University of Florida, and the keynote speaker will be Dr. M.Sc from University of Florida, and the commentator is Professor Andrew Flynn from Cardiff University. We will let you know about this event later. And again, thank you very much. Good night, good morning, good very early in morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Thank you. Bye.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih, Pak.
Sama.
Malam semua.
Malam.
Saya pamit ya.
Ya.
Izinlah.
Ya,
silakan.
Ini